Okay. I think we can start with this slide right here. We're just continuing with where we left yesterday, because if you look at the outline of your syllabus, I'll just bring that up. The outline, where is it? What happened? Ha ha. No.
I have mine pulled up.
Yeah, you have that opening. Just trying to make sure my bearings are there and I'm not losing my way. So the first slide, which was internet technology, this is what we are dealing with right now. Web applications, web browsers. Okay. So lecture 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm going to have to complete anything that's left out of these 4 different lectures we have in the first segment, which we call internet technology.
Okay.
And then HTML course. Okay. Yeah. So slide 4 and 5, that's internet technology. This is code language and web content. Okay, this was for me to just make sure that I'm going in the right direction.
Right.
Now, coming back. So the importance of learning HTML, because a lot of times and I think I've mentioned it, why we need for the researchers to know a little bit about it. And here is a slide that says gives more itemized format of bringing to your attention some of the reasons why we need to learn the HTML. So it says that it brings to your attention some of the hidden information or hidden text that's not revealed as a user to you. And then interpreting it or interpreting the search queries or matching your search words with the content pages. You need to know which operators you require. Like, you don't want to be using certain operators because they're limited or inherently has in its characteristic a limitation that doesn't search or deeper into the content pages. So you want to make sure that you know to what extent or to how deep you want to go in learning those or matching those keywords. Give perspective on content, volume, subject. Okay, this is just some of the reasons. There could be many more. It's to make sure that students understand the importance of knowing a little bit about the HTML. So I'm just going to skip this. I think this is where we can actually start. Now I'm going to give you an idea of what are some of the tags that are read first, or the type of. Now you understand what the tags are, the meta tags, or the name given to the tags. They're like labels, as I told you before. So if it is the title, then there is a title tag and it starts with less than sign and it says meta. The word meta means that it is the main information. Basically, it just carries the overall information or just the preview of what the page might have, or sort of gives an indication of the type of information that is contained in those pages. So those are meta tags. And the 3 type of important meta tags are actually for the users or for someone who is trying to make sure that the snippet itself carries, or whatever information is brought in the snippets, to know where it's coming from or what part of the content page is read. They want to know about the header meta tags. So the header meta tags are three types. One is, of course, the one that I showed you, the title. Then there is a description, which is in gray fonts. And then there is a URL, which is this part. So all these are meta tags. Mostly they reside in the header portion. It should have wordings like description, keywords, title, and so on. So anything that we are going to use to query just the brief title of something that you're trying to find, you would be running a query called in title with the colon sign. And here it is in title. So what in title does is it defines the title portion of the pages. If it is a book of some sort, if it is an author you're querying, or it is a short title which is descriptive enough that it gives a very specific or concise count of what type of information you require. Like suppose you want to download forms of some sort, and giving you an example of IRS website, because it is too big to navigate through, and sometimes it obviously takes a longer time to look for the form. So what you could do is use in title and use the word form, or form 1099, or just name the form, because that way it's going to emphasize the title portion, or it's going to bring you exact information. So that is sort of a short query, and query that is best applied using in title with the colon sign. It provides it displays title of the page. So this is these are two different operators that we are dealing with here. One is in title and the other one is all in title, and we'll learn about that later, but this is just to give you an idea of where the title or in title query runs. That is in the header portion or the top portion of it. And then for the in URL, all in URL, which is another advanced format of a query, we are querying basically any words that are in the URL. So that URL which is in the header portion is queried first as something that sort of defines the page, or basically has a title of that landing page in it or in its path. And for that we are looking at querying with the operator called in URL or all in URL. In text is a deeper query. It is going to look at different tags that we talked about, like H1, H3, P, and so on. So for that, we are going to use in text and all in text. That's going to operate inside the body of text, which is the middle portion. This is where it's actually just defining these three portions or three different areas of a content page. Now, in this slide, what is important, or something that I will show you with the magnifier here, is that if you look at the header portion at the top, right behind this this bracket in blue color, you could see that there are three elements that are picked from the meta side or the header portion, whatever HTML is running behind the head. There is a title tag that is going to use in title, and then there is one piece which is the URL portion, the one that is in the meta portion or the top portion or the header portion. That link or that URL is captured along with other URLs that resides inside of the body of text. So whenever you're running in URL query, you are basically querying not only the header portion for that individual link that is defining the landing page or the title of the landing page, but also whatever other links are shown in the body of text. Only that or whatever, every single link that can be part of the entire content of the page will be captured by in URL, and not just the one that is in the top portion or the header portion. Okay, so this is one exception.
Is that all pages on a site, or just if you're on a page and you?
It's going to be, let's suppose you ran a query in URL colon AOFIRS. Okay, or you ran something that has a title to it, like membership. So these two words, membership or the AOFIRS, when you put them after the colon sign, it is going to look first for whatever information or the link that is in the header portion of all the pages that matches. So when you're talking about querying, you're not looking at just one single individual page, but all those pages that has in their header these terms within the URL path.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, and then it is going to also try to match every other URL that is inside of these codes that are in the body of text. So it is like, unlike title, like title is very specific. It is going to just pick the title tags from the header. It's not going to go deeper into the body of text. So this is where this becomes really restrained or confined to the header portion, this in title. Whereas in URL is going to go broader, and first it's going to look at the header and then look at everything else on that page for those terms that are inside of any sort of URLs that are attached or are programmed in the entire page. Here we are just talking about one page to give you an example, but obviously it is doing multi-search, not just for one content page, but everything that, or all other pages as well. So in URL is, in that sense, goes a little bit broader, but it starts with the header text. So primary search or the default search would be for the main URL that is in the header, and then it is going to proceed to look for and find those words in the body side. Now, third one, which is the in-text query, that is more to do with whatever is inside of the body only, not the header. Because when we are talking about in-text, it is going to query all the tags, not just the meta tags. Whereas in title is only confined to meta tags or the title of the meta text, the in text is going to query everything that is in the body of text, and only one tag that is in the header portion, that which we call description tag. So when we use in text colon, it is just looking at the description meta tag. That's one, and then it's going to proceed, move down and look for other tags that are called non-meta tags or attributes only. And those are, as I mentioned, like H1, H2, P, image, whatever else is there that makes its way into the body part of the content pages. All those non-tags are queried through in text colon. So if I have to do the reason we need to know this, so that we understand that to what extent we want that query to operate, or to basically to the depth of our query will depend on what type of operator we are using. So if we want to find something in the deeper nooks and corners of the content pages, or a deeper query has to run, we'll always use in text with the colon sign. If we are just querying the URLs or whatever URLs has certain certain search words or search term, we're going to use in URL. If we want to confine our search to the title, then we know that it's going to be short. It's going to be the kind of words or the kind of phrase that is more to do with the title or description of what what lies in those pages, as a caption, main caption, or giving us an indication of what type of content pages we are looking for rather than the content itself. So this is where we are going to use the in title. Okay. Okay. This is just a repetition. And I think I mentioned to you when we look at the snippet, when those snippets get returned, we have these three elements: title, URL, and description. All these, now you know where this information is coming from, where the URL is being pulled, where the title portion is coming. It's coming from the meta name called title, or the meta title somewhere here, like right here. So whatever we are looking at in snippets, we know where it's coming from. The only thing that will change a lot of times is the description portion, where the description is indicating so many different types of texts, or the different non-tag elements that carry this information set, with the keywords that you're using, or whatever the search term, long or short of it. It's everything that you are querying will be trying to match all those keywords inside of the body of text, as well as in the description tag, which is the meta tag on the header side. So header tag, which is specifically description tag, or a meta tag called description, is queried, and then the middle portion or the body of text with non-text item, everything there is matched for when we are using in text, and that information is going to sit here in the description part in gray colors, and this will get highlighted like this. All right, now we've done these. We've not started doing the advanced operators yet, so don't want to go further with the technology part, and I think we are pretty much covered the tech. There isn't a lot of content, or the portion or the first module, which is the technology part, is very short. Like in the exams, you will get about 10 questions out of it, and it's we've tried not to make it really very large portion of the course. It was just basic. So far, whatever is important for learning the search operators, we've covered that. I'm going to now show you how we are going to proceed with learning online search queries, and how the entire program is structured for learning the actual search using search operators. Now I don't like too much animation, because I sort of just either moves quickly, or I can't control it occasionally. So I think this has got everything now. If you pay attention to how the online search works, you would see that besides just learning about the search operators, there are other things that we need to also have a bit of a knowledge, so that the overall view of how we do online research has elements besides and beyond just learning how to build the query itself. There are certain tools and utilities and certain type of information which is essential for doing online research. And so we have divided it into two portions. One we call search query development, of designing search queries. The other is search tools and utilities. Now, I wouldn't be able to do online research without these tools, really, because they sort of have a way about it, and the necessity of learning about certain specific tools means that it is going to shorten my time to do research, as well as it will bring some focus results for me. The browser tools are important to know because browser tools obviously could be anything. It could be those utilities and any sort of assistive technology that resides in the browser for the users to work with. Even the video search or image search are specialized, but browser tools also mean that there are special browsers or specific type of browsers that are meant to do search for specific niche area, or you could say that even to make a decision on which browsers to use or the browser tools to use will depend on, for example, the type of query you're doing. If I'm doing research that requires some sort of reach to find information across the borders of United States, specifically in Eastern Europe, I would use, instead of using Google, I'd use a browser called Yandex. That's going to bring me better results, more information, certain information which for various reasons is not available through Google. It's going to be available through Yandex. Similarly, in China, for instance, if I have to do my search using Google, I would be dealing with a lot of restrictions. I guess you could say that they're more secretive about certain things, or they won't allow for Google to reach out to certain websites and collect that information. So I'm going to use another search browser. It's called Baidu, B-A-I-D-U, so on and so forth. So there's certain ways and certain reasons for using specialized browsers, or the type of browsers which may not be necessarily be the search engines, but could be only browsers. Yet those browsers are able to reach into websites or other sort of locations which Google may not be allowed to. So those are not necessarily, we can't call them browser tools, but let's call them browsers as a whole that would have a specialized function. So we need to know about those browsers. Then internet search tools, which means that there are specialized search tools that only specifically search for, let's say, social media accounts, or they are programmed so that they're focused on searching the PDFs only, or certain educational databases are queried through those tools. Then we've got specialized search engines. Now, when we say specialized search engines, there is a list of it, which is given to you. I don't know if you were able to notice it, but it is a reference booklet. It's good, think about 100 some pages. It has the different types of search engines that are listed in there, and they're grouped under titles. Like if you want to do academic search, then these are the best search engines to work with, or the type of search engines that would only specifically search into government agencies, international agencies. So those are very specific. They're also divided into subjects, like certain search engines are only going to search for research papers in sociology, and so on. So those are called specialized search engines. I wouldn't mind showing it to you so that you know what I'm talking about. It's already there in your, or should be there in your Dropbox. So I'm going to check it as well, just to make sure.
Yeah, I think it's
what
under
is your Dropbox link?
CIRS batch 1185. There we go. And then it's resource reference booklets, maybe?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, search queries, specialized search engines, resource links to tree.
research information reference.
Well, no, there's one called resource reference booklets.
Right.
Or is that the one? Or is this the one?
But I think, yeah.
There's lots of
resource reference
folders.
booklet. Exactly. I mean, there's so many.
Yeah.
I think this is the one. So
Okay.
if I click on this, let's see if it opens up. And when you, is it 8.4 yours? Let's see.
Yeah, there's like a password files.
Yeah, it's opened already. So
okay.
if you look at the book, you would see that you know, there are certain websites that have heavy files which otherwise are not archived or easily available. Then you can use FTP search engines, which is only going to query the sites that are using a different protocol, basically, that allows you to reach to those.
Cool.
Yeah. And then business directories, blog search engines. So it's only going to search for blogs.
Nice.
Like in Google, for instance, there is no operator that's going to query specifically the blogs. So for that reason, you know, if you want to just search for blogs or information in the blogs, and you don't want, you know, big articles and just being specific to the blogs, then you can use these search engines. Human rights search engines, I don't think you've ever heard of it, but certain
no, it sounds fascinating.
Yeah, so if I click on this, I'm just curious myself. Let me just open this. So here, African Commission on Human and People Rights, Amnesty International, all these are listed here. And these are rated like for performance, for quality of data. I don't know, there are different sort of, you know, markers that we use to define or to come up with overall ratings. So these are given, right?
1 to 5 scale, so, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this one's like 5+, 5, 5, 2. So this is poor. That means maybe the data is incomplete, it's insufficient, quality is not, whatever is there.
Yeah.
So you could just safely go and click on Amnesty, knowing that you'll get a lot of information right here. So these are all clickable links. So coming back to
yet another rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's go back to the slide. So Marge, you know, specialized search engines are important as a reference that you need to keep, because when you start your research business, you really have to prepare for it. Not that just because somebody's offered you research work, you could just, you know, start right away. I mean, it takes a little bit of preparation for you to, first of all, have the kind of library that you can build with the you know, bookmarks, some of the reference books, some of the tools that you should have, so that you're familiar with them, you are sort of comfortable using it. And when you're talking to the client, while you're even in discussions before getting the contract, you know what you're talking about, knowing the back of your head that you'd be able to tackle this problem or do this research because you have access to certain resources. Those are your personalized assets. So you have to build that first. Okay.
Right.
So this is specialized search engines. Then we've got deep web search. Deep web search is a small portion in our CIRS course, which sort of allows you to, you know, get that sense of understanding what deep web means, and to get you out of that mindset, which generally when we read about deep web, it talks about some mysterious place, or it gives a notion that you're missing out on large part of the internet only because it's in the deeper web. Sort of demoralizing for a lot of us, but that's information is clarified because it is corrected. And
so it's not like the black market of web
Yeah,
data.
like as if it has got some notorious
Yeah.
reputation. But there's a small portion of it which is more in the deeper layers of, or one of the smaller areas of a deep web. Something that has a notorious reputation. We don't necessarily deal with that when we talk about deep web. Deep web just means that the pages that the search engine is specifically not allowed to archive or to index, only because, you know, it is a paid material, or let's say it is the kind of an area where you need to be registered first or have a membership for, you know. And that doesn't mean the information is denied, except that it gives you an offer to get registered or an offer to become a member, or whatever, you know, the restriction might be. So basically it leads you onto, or brings you to that, those pages where the title of the page is shown. For example, like it could be database of something, at least it is going to take you there. So it's not denying you the access to the deep web. All it's doing is asking you to, now here you are, you at the door. Now it's your choice if you want to register, or, you know, to in order to get that database. So it's not totally invisible in that sense, but invisible in the sense that it exists, but it has certain rules for you to have access to that.
So I didn't realize, I'm looking at the search engines in that document, and I didn't realize National Archives, OCLC, DOAJ were considered part of the deep web. Interesting, because I've searched those.
Yeah, because you see, now the way deep web is set is a little bit different, because it has a commercial aspect, which means that you have to drive consumers at least to a place where they know that the information exists, but that information may require for you to register, or for you to get more information out of. You would have to do few things, or to meet their conditions. But for you to get to those pages, those websites have to have enough information, of some information that brings interest of the consumer, so that they are, you know, they're being driven onto those sites, eh? So to that extent, yes, I mean, they're not in the deep web, but it is only for information reasons and for driving the traffic on this site. Right? So it gets, like ICIJ, for example, I can get a lot of information from their site. I can get free access to certain portions of the database. But if I want to download their database, do more research, or sort of be more engaged with the information that's coming, you know, in real time, like there is a lot of layers built into it that requires for me to register or subscribe to or donate, you know.
Right.
So I'll do that for me to get access to that, because it takes some effort to organize that data, you know. For their data mining purposes, they have put in some effort that justifies for them to ask for, you know, certain things, or for you to subscribe to. So yeah, that is part of the deep web. Now on the right hand side, I will show you that we have, okay, all right, animation. Okay. It's not required really, I mean, but I don't know, some slides have it. So well, so there are instructors that like it. They want to go, you know,
yeah, if you're going
make it more
graphic
dramatic
by graphic, yeah.
Yeah.
Click, 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 yeah.
So on the search query side, which is where we are learning how to do more precision search, we have divided our course into portions. Like first we start with keyword search phrases, and search operators, like introduction to search operators. Now, when you are using keywords and search operators together, there is a method to it where we sort of design our approach to doing search using search queries, and we call them methods. So one of them is called precision search, which means that we are doing a more narrow search or more focused search, or the search for something that we know of or know enough that it can create a successful search query. So those are precision search. And normally for precision search, we use a combination of Booleans and advanced operators. Then there is another type of search which we consider a separate method, just for the reason of distinguishing it from between the precision search and non-precision, or search or for something that we don't know of exactly, but we have a general idea. For that reason, we call it proximity search. And proximity search has a few operators which are really assistive in nature, and basically they do query in the broader sense, or they have a way that is going to find something for you which otherwise you don't know of exactly, but you only know few bits and pieces about it. So those we call proximity search. One of them, as an example, is the asterisk, like the wild card we call it, or something that is also called what a placeholder. So there is a symbol that we use, it's called asterisk. Yeah, and then there is another operator from the advanced one of the advanced operators we called around, AROUND. That sort of is used to find the missing number of words in between two words or two sets of search terms. So that is also a proximity search operator. So the method that we apply in building search queries for proximity search are a little bit different from the precision search. Okay, and the rules might be a little different also. So that is the method. But the search operators, we have divided it into basic operators and advanced operators. I don't know whoever invented the term basic or named them as basic operators, even though basic doesn't mean that they're less important or something that they've been calling basic, but it is applied in advanced search queries. For instance, Boolean operators, symbols, notations, those are considered basic operators, or something that you have to learn first. I mean, there is no definition for it, but let's say something that you need to know ahead of time before you can even start to put your search queries together. When we're doing search queries, primarily they're split up into two types. One that everybody does, usually it's only driven by the search term. The search term may be a single keyword, bunch of words, or a long search phrase, whatever it may be. The search terms are pretty much like confined to how you use the words together, or as a singular or multiple words, whereas the second part of it is to apply with those words the booleans, like or, not, anything you want to add to or take out. That is sort of the basics, are considered basics. So keywords, search phrase, and search operators like booleans are the basics that we will start with. Next is the advanced operators, which has got a structure of its own, slightly different from the way they look and how they're formed. Like as an example, like over here, you could see it says file type with the colon sign. So it has got a text or a word followed by the colon sign, you could see. So all in title with the colon sign, all in text with the colon sign. So they have a nature and a structure that needs to be understood a little bit, because there would be situations where and only because they're not a lot many of them, and you can only work with the ones that are identified or are basically announced by search engines. Because of their limitations, we need to be very creative about using them. We don't have a whole lot of grounds to play with variety of these, just few of them are there. So understanding the structure of it would help us to become, as I mentioned, more creative, and you would be able to. So creativity means, like, for example, there are certain file types which cannot be queried while they still exist in the search engine database or the content page. Like MPEG, for example, MPEG format we won't be able to query even though it exists. PNG for image we won't be able to query even though it exists. What it will find is PDF, XLS, most of the Microsoft Office, some of the other formats also can be queried, but they're limited in the sense of how much of the file type colon can be useful for us. But at the same time, there could be a more creative way of using it for those type of file formats that are not that cannot use the file type colon. So how we do that is that we get rid of the word file type and we just use the colon sign. What colon sign stands for is execution first function, or something that executes a function in the database. So just using colon alone will do a lot of things for us. Like, it'll find those files which otherwise are not going to work with the entire operator using the word file type and colon. So that is one creative way of using it. And to understand what the wordings mean that are on the left hand side, how many instance of file type we can use in a single search query, for it, whether file type colon would work with certain other advanced operator or not. So all those are some of the rules and some of the limitations, a barrier you can say, which would not make it as flexible unless you know your way around it, or you are using it in a proper way. It may not function. So to that extent, each and every advanced operator we deal with will have a certain inherent limitations, a nature of it, a way that we can use it by breaking it into smaller components, or like I mentioned, just using the colon sign and so on. So that is what I mean by being more creative. So advanced operators are going to be dealt with as a separate portion of the course, something that will be distinguishable from basic operators. And by the way, when we say basic and advanced, it means that they work together, in the sense that it's not like you're doing your searches in isolation with basics being separate from advanced, unless you have to have a knowledge of basics for it to work with advanced. Notations and simple are very powerful, and it just depends on how you apply them. Some of the notations are, for example, as the hashtag is going to be very important when you're doing your when you're looking for something from social media accounts. Dollar sign means that it is the monetary part of the money or the currency you're looking for. Anyway, so this is just an overview of how we're going to proceed. Now, the left portion of it we'll deal with later. Most of the one that is here in this box is got a reference manuals, or you could say that it has kind of a more of a self-study plan for you guys, less to do with what is on the right hand side. We'll be emphasizing more or learning more on this side to know how the search queries are set. So this one is not it's not like it's less important. It is probably, I mean, I wouldn't be, like I mentioned, it is most important when you're doing online research and you're doing it on regular basis. You have to build your own library of tools, and all of this will come in handy. But on the right hand side is where we are going to focus on.
Okay.
I'm going to take a few minutes break here. When I return, we'll start with the, where should we start from? Keywords and search phrase, the basic. Okay, so we'll start with the keywords. and phrase search phrases, and then we'll see if we have time to start learning the booleans.
Okay.
Booleans they seem very harmless, very easy, very very easy to apply, but they are, I think, probably most complex in the sense that there are not a lot of them that we can use. For example, just giving you a heads up, for example, we don't use A and D anymore, which is a plus sign or something that adds two terms together. Okay, so all we are left with in booleans is the or operator and the minus sign, which is eliminator or takes care of negative words in search query. So those are the two. And then and sign is replaced by the quotation marks. So you have to be very creative. There is very limited number of these, so we have to go and do things by the rules so that we understand their limitations, and we also understand their advantages or take full advantage of them. So I won't take it as simple as we like to think, or how we've learned it through our notes or the way they're described on the internet. It's very it looks simple. So with that, let's take 5 to 7 minutes of break. I'll just have to get my coffee, and then
Okay. You haven't started back yet, have you?
Hey Marge, I'm back. I haven't started. I was just reshuffling some slides.
Yeah, I was making sure because you were muted. I was like, uh-oh, if he's starting, I can't.
No, that's good. You mentioned. I was just pulling the right slides.
That's fine.
Here we go. So this is lecture 8. We are going to start with keywords and search phrases. Just looking at how certain terminologies are applied. What is the difference between keyword and a search phrase to begin with? It's pretty basic for you, I'm sure, but it's more of a revision, I guess. Something that we have to learn to maintain the flow of slides. Let's look at 2 examples here. We are going to see what the keywords, what is considered keywords, and what is a search phrase. So let's suppose in the search box we have these 3 words. Individually they are called keywords, and together when they're put together, or they're considered as combination of words or more than one word, becomes a phrase for the search. It doesn't happen sometimes it can happen automatically, because certain keywords together are considered more valuable, more popular, so the search engine would clump them together on its own. So that becomes automated sort of a way of search engine to make its own selection. On the other hand, from the point of view of a researcher, they want to emphasize on certain words to be together, they have to use something called the quotation marks to enclose those words as if they are single search phrase. Like in this case, the 3 keywords for someone who is attempting to do the search with all 3 of these doesn't mean necessarily that all 3 will be entertained by the search as a single phrase. So individually they will be called keywords, or any of the words that are not put within the quotation marks are considered individually as single keywords or set of keywords, and not a search phrase. That's from the perspective of knowing that the keywords can be played with by search engine, because you're not defining it, you're not restricting or confining any combination of words, rather they're loose words. So these are keywords. In the second one, you could see that we have put these 3 words inside of the quotation marks, starting with quotation open, quotation close. Occasionally we do end up making a mistake where the quotation mark open we can become or because they're very small. See, when you write something in the search box, it is you might end up, or the quotation mark may end up being an open quotation mark. Let's suppose this one right here, could end up being open quotation marks. So you want to make sure there are, I'm sorry, saying, what am I saying? It could end up being a closed quotation mark
Single
rather
versus,
than open one.
oh, okay.
Okay.
Single
So,
versus double.
yeah. So, and similarly, where the quotation mark close is to come at the end of it, may just, remain as an open quotation marks. It happens because if you have terms right next to the quotation marks, somewhere, before the open or the close mark, it might just attach itself to the other term, or so idea here is that you want to make sure that open and closed quotation marks are closely looked at, because they're very tiny, and if they're left open, it's not going to work as you imagine, and you won't even know about it. You just keep correcting the query and won't know what has happened. So that's just a tip for you, but we'll see. It happens quite a lot. It doesn't seem like it, but it does happen. So what we need to learn about building queries with the keywords and building of search phrases is the way in which we are going to consider individual words or combination of words into, or give it a criteria or give it a characteristic. These different terminologies that we use comes in handy when we are delegating search to our colleagues or giving it to somebody, emphasizing on what words or combination of words should be considered primary, how the individual search phrase can be split up into more components like heads and modifiers and tails. Again, it is a set of instructions which needs to emphasize that certain words have to be considered as head words and others have to be modifiers. So if you're delegating this search to your whoever is doing it for you, you're making sure that you are able to define or give instructions in a way that it is understood, like which of the words would be considered head. That means words that cannot be changed, modifiers that can be changed, tail could be contextual words or added words, and so on. So this is why we are going to learn about all of these, and then what is short tail query, what is long tail. So concepts needs to be understood, and we're going to start with the primary keywords to know what they mean. Okay. As an example, let's take these three keywords: internet, research, industry. Never mind the color of the fonts. Just think of these as three keywords. So here we are looking for some information on internet research industry. All three of these words have an intent behind the search, which the search engine would have to look at in the sense of how these three words are set together, like they are put in a certain sequence. So the sequence of these words, linguistically, it is correct. Search engine should also interpret it as a query which has all three set in the sequence of how they're showing right here. But more important for us is to know if any of these words, if we take them out, would that have an impact on giving a signal to the search engine that the intent of the search behind these three words is understood by the search linguistically, and the reason why you've put all these three together, would these be considered primary keywords? Like if you take any one of these out, would it still make sense for the search to interpret the intent of or the objective of your search or not? So let's suppose I just drop the word internet from here and I let the search engine look for research industry. Would that fulfill the requirement or objective of our search? Yes or no? If I take out internet and just do research industry, wouldn't research industry mean something different from what we are looking for, which is specific to internet, it will definitely defeat the purpose of the query. If I get rid of the word research, it would also change the meaning or intent of search. So then we are talking about internet industry, which is different from internet research industry. And if we just not use the word industry, it would impact or would change the intent of search for the search engine to only look for internet research and nothing to do with the industry. So what happens is that makes it indispensable for these three words to be substituted, replaced, or let's say dropped totally. So all three of these words are important enough or at least this is the minimum requirement of three words, which translates the intent of your search exactly, precisely, and without confusion. So in other way, in the sense of how we are going to define these three words for not having, or giving the flexibility of changes, substitution, or dropping any of one of them, we will call all three of them primary keywords. That means we cannot do away with any one of these. All right. So all three are considered primary keywords. So that is what we call primary keywords. They don't change. You don't want anyone to change it. Secondary keywords are the words that support the primary search keywords or search phrase. Secondary keywords are going to make your query more precise, or it will give it more flexibility without changing the sense in which they are applied. But we have used these three keywords like internet research training, for example, as if, and it has nothing to do with what we are with nothing to do with these three words, but rather we are now looking for the opportunity to find the internet research training somewhere or a program that is available online. So we are going to look for it. And for that reason, we have used internet research training as three words, where the word in purple color, the word training, can be replaced by the word certification, can be replaced by the word education. So really the two words, the first one, internet and research, will become primary keywords, and training, certification, education, course, these can be replaced, or you can call them the supportive words or secondary keywords. So your primary keywords will remain intact while your secondary keywords can be changed. So this is the reason when you delegate your search or you're planning your research online, you want to make sure that you identify the primary keywords and the secondary keywords. Secondary gives more flexibility, that's all. So this over here, you could see that there could be occasions when you end up changing the primary keywords totally and then allow for the research to use substitute words. Or when you are searching, let's say internet research course, for instance, and you're getting search results returned with the word internet or research substituted by web search, for example, and the search engine will do that only when it finds itself in a tight spot, and it has to use something called stemming and lemmatization, a process which the search engine uses in the semantic sense, or as an artificial intelligence. It starts to substitute certain words or starts to find synonyms for it. So that when your search results get returned from, let's say, query 4, and it is showing more occurrences of web search training instead, you may want to reconsider and change the primary keywords to secondary keywords. Yeah. Now, if we want to hash out or make our search term more granular for precision search, we will consider identifying certain type of words that can be distinguished into three components or three elements. We would like to call the head, the modifier, and the tail. So for instance, here in in our regular practice, when we are, I mean, I don't have a time to do a lot of research work. So what I do is I delegate when I'm doing that, giving it as an assigned work. I have a form that says to, first of all, it just distinguishes primary and secondary keywords, which I give or I figure out. And then I also have in that form something that separates the search terms or the entire search phrase into components, making it more granular, like identifying the head and the modifier and the tail. And now I'll explain what these three mean. So let's suppose we start with this. This is the simplest form of it. They could be longer search queries or lengthier search phrases. But for simplicity, let's just suppose that these are three that I'm using: Internet Research Certification. Now the word internet has become for me a head word, which means it is kind of a primary search term, or the anchor word, or the word that cannot be replaced. So the head word, I wouldn't want anyone to replace it with anything else. The second word in the red color is research. This I have termed as modifier, which means that you cannot drop this word. You cannot use it you cannot use it or in any other sequence. That means it has to be coming right after the word internet. So it has become a modifier. The only thing that I would allow in a modifier is a replacement of the word or substituting the word with another one that does not change the meaning of it, or is going to keep the sense in which it is applied right next to internet um, to remain there, or the so the modifier can only replace something, but it cannot be dropped, or it cannot otherwise be changed in the sequence in which it is set. So that is a modifier. Then we have something we like to identify as tail. Tail are more like a context that you give, or it becomes more of a supporting words for the head and the modifier. So certification means that it can be replaced, it can be dropped, and you can add more tail words to it. Tail words is the flexibility part that you allow for whoever is doing that research, that they can put in additional contextual words, and all those contextual words would be tail words. Whereas head and modifier, you don't want it to be changed much. So this is how we're going to define or identify in a more granular level the search term to be split into these three elements. Okay. By the way, I'm going to make sure that the slides that we've discussed, and some of the slides, as I mentioned, I've pulled from some other instructors' database. I'm going to reorganize it and give it to you. I'll do it over the weekend. So on Monday, you will have something more of a final version of the PowerPoints. The ones that you have in your Dropbox are probably not as many, or they're not as complete, or whatever changes I had to make, I couldn't do it on time. So it is coming from the previous lectures. Just to improve on that, I'll have to restructure, and I'll get it for you on Monday. All right. The next thing is short tail, the concept of short tail and long tail. This is more to do with terminology because, a lot of times I would say that do the search, do a broad search. That means use a short tail approach. If I want to do research more as an exploratory research or on something that we are trying to discover rather than having a knowledge about it, which means longer search queries, I would say that do a long tail or do a narrow search. So that is just the approach. There are two types of approach. One is broad search, the other one is long tail. So from that perspective, we would look at how the long tail and short tail are differentiated. And we are going to use the head, modifier, and tail as an example. So let's just look at the short tail. Short tail basically means that there are less number of words, mostly primary keywords or the kind of words which makes a short phrase. That means there is less context attached to it, less of tail words are there, and that would bring more results back when you do that kind of search. So you'll have more of a broader spectrum of results to look into and then explore and then sort of make it a narrower search later on by adding more context to convert it into a long tail. So it is more of a process, and usually we start with the broad search, then we end up doing long tail and create long tail queries. Usually this is how it happens. So with the head, modifier, and a tail, you could see, as we've done earlier, this is modifier. Now later when we see the results based on that, we can clump or add two terms together. Like for instance, I did make this term, which was considered a head term, into a broader head term by adding the modifier to it. So when I do add the word research to the word internet, I'm creating a head. So I'm giving instructions that now that we are pretty sure that internet research could be two primary keywords, so let's just call it a head and put it together. So I put internet and research together as a head term. So basically, a modifier can be added to the head term to make it one longer head term, and so it moves on the from left to right. Let's say where the word certification on top has now taken a place of a modifier and has become a modifier term. And then of course you can keep adding the tail words, or you could even make internet research certification as a head term and then add more terms to it to identify the modifier, and then later add additional tail words. So it becomes longer and it becomes more precise query. When it achieves a precision, or it is so precise that you're comfortable that this is the type of results it's bringing, which is satisfactory results, you sort of, that's where you're going to do most of your research. So this may just keep changing. On the other hand, when you keep adding more and more tail words and make it more precise, more than 3 or 4 words, generally it is called a long tail. So the long tail means that it has more terms to it or a lot more tail words to it. Long term is more precise, more narrower search, less results will turn up. So that's long tail, and this is short tail. Any questions on this? You think so far?
Nope. These are all things we teach our students too. We just don't use the terminology long tail or short tail. We just say narrower or broader.
So you don't need this, the difference between long tail and short tail. Now see, thing is that some of these slides have illustrations or images that will come in handy when you are, even though you know the subject, that's fine. But when it comes to taking the exams, you will find that these will look familiar to you, because
yeah, it's all good.
So that's the reason why you have to at least, where, let's suppose short tail, the differentiation, for instance, you know what it's about, but from the academic perspective, or where you're actually sitting for the exam, certain information even though basic, unless they are read at least once, it won't really sit well in your head at the time of exam. So you might just want to just get a general idea if you don't want to read through everything, just to help you out in passing your exam. It might be necessary. This chart might appear in the exam. This one, I saw it like the last, yeah, the last one that I saw, the questions, it had something like this. So and now this is to do with the approach. Remember, I told you we start with the broad query, then we narrow it down. So this is just the process. An example is shown here. So you start with the initial process. In the exam, for instance, how this thing will show up is that the sequence in which this process is applied, where first you start with the main topic, then what comes second, what comes third. This sequence may be important, and even though it is fundamental and it's got a lot of, I mean, you can use your logical sense to know in what sequence it is to be applied. So you should know that, how so if it is written as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and if the sequence is showing 3, 4 different ways in which it is laid out, with the numbering, you should know which answer is correct or which sequence is correct. That's what you have to know. So initial topic, similar broader terms you can add to make it narrower. You're going to add more tail words, and then as when you get the results or anything that you're seeing which is showing up in your snippets, you may want to fine tune it, or you may want to add more context or see some related terms that are there which you probably missed out. So anytime that you're doing your search, there is no such thing as one single search query that's going to bring you exact results that you require. So eventually, you'll find out it is more of a process. So one of the things that we do to continue with that process to fine tune our search queries is to look carefully into the results and pick something which is defined by Google or which is adding more context, so that we can pick those words and add it to our search query. So, really to make it more precise. So in that sense, it is a process. This is just a summary of what we have learned. It's good enough. Now I'm going to start with the quotation marks. In the, the Boolean operators are part of the algebra or the algebraic construction of how we put those how we create those equations. Has a lot to do with using the Boolean operators. So having a sense of knowing certain algebraic laws, like there is a associative law, commutative law, what else? There are different laws of algebra, we call them fundamentals, which, for example, tells you that anything that is in parentheses needs to be resolved first before it gets attached to the term outside of the parentheses, and so there is a rule of how you're going to build an algebraic equation. But when you are replacing those, I guess you can call it like alphabets or variables. Let's suppose it's A plus B, for instance. So A could be considered a word and B could be considered another word. So in that sense, you could just sort of visualize and apply your understanding of algebra when you're using OR. Okay, or you're using AND, or you're using minus signs. All those are Booleans. So, just keep that in mind. While we are doing this, you will understand it better. But in this case, we are just dealing with creating search phrases and knowing how the search engine behaves when you have certain terms inside of quotes and the keywords that are outside of the quotes. The understanding of the function of how the search engine is going to react to it is what we will learn now. So let's suppose we have in the first one, we have these three words, internet research specialist, and these are not placed within quotation marks. Some of the things that will happen are shown here as 1 through 6. You would notice that the sequence in which these words are placed can be changed. So the search engine may just use it in the sequence or bring results that has something that says internet specialist and then the word research somewhere there. It could, start shuffling not only the terms, but will be more selective in making pairs or making its own phrase depending on which of the words together are more popular. So let's suppose internet research are more popular, it will just reveal more results that has these two put together or appear as these two terms are single search phrases. And this is what it's going to do on its own and end up dropping the word specialist as an example. And then it'll start making pairs and make its own choices. Research, internet can be separate words. In other words, without the quotation marks or quotation mark enclosed, all these three words will give any combination of these words to be considered by search, and others may be dropped or they could be replaced also. But when you put these three words inside of the quotation marks, you are ensuring that all three of them appear in the same sequence or are considered as a single search term, which means that the search engine is forced to look for all these three together as if it is one single search phrase. So it becomes one single search term. When we start to move quotation marks, like in one right here in B, internet research, for instance, it is going to only make sure that these two are together and they appear as single search term and they are matched in search results as a mandatory return. Whereas the word specialist being outside the quotation marks would have given the search engine to either drop this word totally or replace it with any other, or to pair specialist with some other word. So not to make it as if it is part of the internet research, but it could mean that it would have, the word specialist would have a relationship with internet research somewhere, or the term internet research, where this has become a mandatory return, the word specialist may not be, or specialist may be replaced by some other word. So it just, so sometimes we do it intentionally, like we do put certain terms within quotes, not only because we want a mandatory return or make it into a search phrase, but to make sure that certain portion of those words has to, while they remain intact as a single search phrase, the word that is intentionally set outside is something that we are not sure of, or something that we would like to give the search engine the opportunity to find a replacement for, or find a better term. So intentionally leaving it outside of the quotation mark. So if I feel that the word specialist may not be making sense or may not be appearing in my search results when I put it inside of the quotation alongside internet research, I would intentionally put it outside so as to get at least some results, or not for the search engine to ignore it totally because it doesn't exist as a search term. That means it's going to drop those pages totally, and it won't bring any results at all. So for that reason, to make that search flexible, I'll start to break it into smaller words or their combinations and leave the word that is causing the issue outside of the quotation mark. So that is by design, or by strategically you do it as well when you want to open your search a little bit, make it more flexible for the searching.
Okay, so on these slides, you're putting everything in brackets. I know it's just for the purpose of your presentation, but I don't. I'm hoping people aren't confusing the brackets with something that you would include when you're actually doing a search.
So these brackets are indicating that it is a search.
It's a phrase, right?
No,
but
no,
I'm just
these
saying.
brackets.
But you wouldn't include the bracket when you do the search.
No, of course
That's
not.
my point. Is
No,
some people might be confused by the special character thinking, oh, I have to use the bracket and then the three terms.
No, I agree.
Okay.
But mostly where I guess we've been using it so often, even in the book everywhere, we didn't really realize that it would be confusion. But
you know,
I'm glad
like,
you pointed it out. I should have mentioned it before. But yeah, so just ignore the brackets. Just think of it as an enclosure or just giving simulating a search box. Now, one thing that you may have noticed that in the third instance, we have put individual words within the quotation marks as well. So why did we do that? And if we put these three individually in quotation marks, what is the difference between 3 over here and let's say 2 over here? Just to explain this, I'm going to, to give you or to differentiate between 2 and 3, I would like to explain the utility of using the quotation marks. First of all, quotation marks we've used so far is only meant to put words together as if they are single search term or a single search phrase. So that is the function of it mainly. Okay, but on the other hand, it has an aspect which means that it is used to emphasize something that needs to be returned mandatorily or something that cannot be ignored. Supposing if I put the single words, all three individually put within quotation mark, it is not an incorrect query. Except that what we have done here is that we have emphasized for the search to make sure that it returns all these words, like in the content pages that comes out should have these three words, not necessarily in the same sequence as a search phrase, but their presence is mandatory. So that's the reason we have put these individually. So between 2 and 3, you would find that there'll be more results coming when you're using 3, because individually these words may not be together, they're not as confined. They could be used in context to something else or another term next to it, or even terms together, but it is definitely going to be there. So that's probably the only way to ensure that anything that is outside of the quotation marks, or even a single word that you need to emphasize, has to be part of the returned results. You cannot just leave it outside the quotation marks, especially the kind of words that you feel are indispensable. So you're going to put them within quotation. Even if it is a single word, you can emphasize it by putting it within quotation marks. Now, let's suppose we have, now this is to explain how we are going to replace the A and D. Remember A and D, that, well, it has to come a little bit after, but what A and D does is that it sort of adds the two variables or two search terms together, ensuring that they exist as a single search phrase or the presence is emphasized. For example, I'm going to use a notepad because I don't have a whiteboard. I want to use a notepad to explain few concepts. And let me just open this.
Oh yeah, because Zoom didn't have a whiteboard. It's one of the, it's not a teaching tool like all these other platforms.
Yeah, and it doesn't work that well though for me, because I have to write something, I have to use a pen, and then it brings that image. And there's something there that even something that doesn't make me feel comfortable. So I'm going to use the notepad because I'm used to writing using the keypad. So let's suppose there is this A plus B right here. So if it was a search term, what used to happen before, if you wanted the A and B to be together, or these two words to be together, it used to replace, it used to be written like this. A, and then there used to be a plus sign, and then B right here. Okay, with a single character gap in between the plus sign and the first term. So it used to add the term A used to add the term B. This is how it used to be written. And if it was be replaced by the Boolean, we used to write it A and B, right? So now what is happening is that we are replacing and by putting, let's say, A within quotes, and then leaving a gap of a single character so that two terms are separated, and then put within quotes the term B. So this means that A and B has to be present, but it does not mean that they will be put in the same sequence. Okay, or it won't be like A, B together as if it is a single search term or a single search phrase. So to make it a single search phrase, we would improve on this and put it A, B, and then put. So this is how it is happening. So it has transitions from this to this to what used to be this. And now we have two versions of it. To find these two terms separate but available in the content page, and then make it into a search phrase. So this is how it has transitioned. This is the simplest way of explaining.
Right.
So we don't use and anymore. If we want to replace and, we would just rather write it like this. Okay. Or if we want these two words, like supposing taking the same example, if we had something like this, that's the first one, and this is the second one. Okay, so if we had more than one term, it used to be with the single character gaps, just so that you understand the, I guess, the way that it has, started to move and go from algebraic expression to the way it is set today. So A plus B, and then there is a character, single character gap, and then you're going to put plus C. This is what it used to be, and you can just say that this is how it was occurring. And now it has become like this. Okay. So we don't need the and anymore. You see?
Okay.
Right. So I guess in this slide, they were trying to explain how the gap of a single character in here, for instance, where we have written Internet Research Specialist, notice there's no quotation marks in the first one. These are three terms, but when you put these three terms together like one next to another, just the fact that there is a single character gap, the search engine assumes that there is a plus sign in between. So there is an assumed plus sign. Okay. So in other words, what the search wants is to assume that all three words are set in the same sequence without, when you don't put the quotation mark. So default action of the search is to find all three words. First, it's going to try to find all three words together, okay, as a default action. Second default action is that it is going to look for combination of these words in any way it wants, either add research or specialist, or add internet research together. The third is that it is not going to worry about dropping any of these words, even with the assumed plus sign. So it is somewhat sounds a little bit crazy, where we know that plus means you're adding something. And if Google says there's an assumed plus, when you have a single character gap between words, sort of making it in the sense a mandatory return for all of these to automatically clump together or together create a search phrase. When in reality, the plus sign is only indicating that the search engine has the option now, or it has, you have given it the flexibility of going into a default mode, assuming there is a plus sign when the plus sign is not emphasized. It sounds crazy, but
no, yeah. I mean, so it's either searching any of the three or any or one or three.
Yeah. So it is. If you look at how Google explains it, it is saying that right now you don't need to put a plus sign. You can assume there is a plus sign. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? Right? So I've just explained it to you what it means in the sense of how the plus, the word plus or the notation plus is explained by Google. Yeah. But what I have done here is that I have added another plus sign, but with a different color, only to emphasize that it is doubly plussed, or the plus sign in red has another plus sign that is actually enforcing something. Okay. Because of the quotes. Yeah, but I mean, mathematically it doesn't make sense. Because you're not putting two spaces between research and specialist. You're just saying, but because it's in quotes, that means you have to put those two together. Absolutely. Yeah. So exactly. So this is the reason I've put the other plus sign. Okay. Now, what it's saying here in the third one, for instance, that with the gap after these two terms are emphasized, put within quotes with two pluses, there is a single gap, which means it's an assumed plus, and the word specialist comes right after. So in the sense of how this plus is interpreted, again, is the same way that the first one, which I explained to you as default action on how the search is going to apply their assumed plus sign, is going to be an action that is going to happen for the specialist. So the word specialist would first, it'll try to find it right next to internet research. Second, it's going to look for any other search term that attaches with specialist, not necessarily having any relationship with internet research, but make another relationship. So kind of a loose way of how the search engine is going to treat something outside of the quotation marks. Okay. So then the fourth one, I am showing that there is two pluses for something that is put within quotes. So if the word specialist is inside of the quotation, it is a mandatory find. So it is supposed to be found, or it has to be returned, except that it won't be in the same sequence of how the three words are meant to occur as if it is a single search term. Rather, it is a separated single keyword, which does not have to be right next to internet research, but can be found anywhere on that content page alongside internet, along with internet research, anywhere on that content page. Mm-hmm. So you see this, and over here in the sixth, again, all three words, just to emphasize they have to be written, I put two pluses next to it. So this is just to explain you why we have, put this to get you an idea. By the way, you understand where the end can be replaced by the quotation marks? Yes. Okay. So when the double pluses are there, it means that there could be A and D in between. It would still mean the same thing, but we don't use it anymore. It's not recommended, and it's not necessary either. Even though A and D works, it works. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it doesn't work. It is stated there in as part of the booleans that work with the search queries, and you will even find different number of results, but they will be more or less same. Like it is not precisely replacing A and D because you see different volume of results, but at the same time, it is not necessary. You won't miss out on anything if you don't use A and D. In the library databases do use the A and D. They even stick them in like an advanced search. They stick them in separate rows. So you're doing an and search or an or. Yeah. So
little different, but yeah, conceptually.
Yeah. But it works. I mean, Booleans are definitely part of something that data or anything that is in the textual database is worked upon or is used to still maneuver and do your searches with the Booleans. So Booleans are not replaced, but they're improved. What Google has done is just sort of taken away A and D as if it has a perfect replacement with the quotation marks. That's what they're saying.
Right.
But it doesn't mean it doesn't work. So that part I just want to be clear about. Certain terminologies that we'll be using in future, even while we are learning advanced search operators. So I want you to, at this point, because this is more like a foundation, sort of a set of lectures before we start to work on the search query. So it's going to cover something that actually even applies on advanced operators as well. It's generally a basics of fundamentals. So the terminologies we'll use, I'm just going to show it to you so that there is no confusion when I'm explaining it. So there is a difference between the notations and symbols. Notations are plus minuses, something that is algebraically considered as something which can be mathematically used. So signs, plus minuses, we call notation. Symbols are like vertical bar. Asterisk could be a symbol, for example. Then objects, what is objects? Objects can be anything that is declared or something that is searched for, or it is declared as a term. So a term in itself would have two components. It could be just a single keyword, or it could be more than a few words, or at least the phrases that you're using as a single search term. Those are called objects. So anything that we are going to declare after we write the search operator, or anything that falls on the right of it or the left of it, would be considered objects which are declared against the operators or with the operators or alongside operators. Those are objects. So we might just use, instead of saying it's a keyword or a search term or a search phrase, just to remove that confusion, we just say objects. Especially when we are explaining it in the algebraic equations. Then we have to understand the logic, or how the Booleans are considered to be the kind of logics that we build when we're doing programming, because the only way the instructions are going to be interpreted is through creating logics or functions. Functions are created through logics, as you know from the programming. So the Booleans are part of the logic, or you could call some of the words here that creates a function or a logic inside of the programs are words like if, then, all in capital, A and D, not, these two Booleans we are using, or we are using get could be another logic, put, variable, var, ch. It's all understood in the machine language. So machine learning uses it. We don't use it for search queries, but to understand what part or where the and, not, and or is coming from, it is part of the logic or the terms that the database able to understand. So this is what logic means. Notations and symbols, if we use it together, it could be any of these. Could be a hashtag, and sign, percentage. All these are considered logics, or these are considered notations. Right. Notations work really well with logic. So logics and notations create a function. Then the textual database terms that we declare or we talk about, or where we are going to say that certain objects are. So what objects are the data, for example, in the sense of how a database engineer is structuring things. It's going to look at data or sets of data or multiple data as objects. Like it can group it together. It could be 10 different data sets. If you clump them together and declare it as a single object, that is what it means when we say object is same as data, except that the data is declared as an object first, and then object can be parsed, or it can work with the operator. So object could be text, or it could be alphanumeric, or just numerics. Declared object in database is equal declared object. Again, I explained it to you. Anything that gets declared or comes after on either side of the operators, or as a declared term in the advanced operators, for instance, where you are writing, let's say, file type colon, and the format that you're going to put, like PDF, whatever comes after the colon sign, is a declared object. So what gets declared is an object, and object has a name given to it. So you can actually parse that object further by giving it a name, or declaring it as a variable which is defined, or has a name to it. So that is declared object. Booleans are declared words. Okay, this we don't need to talk about objects. So there could be several terms in the object, which I explained to you. A single object may have more objects attached to it. Now, this is not teaching you algebra, but just to get you back into, to connect it with your algebra lessons in the school.
So sometimes basic. English when we were talking about objects and subjects.
True, though. I mean, it's just that it could have so many different. It just depends on what sample you're using it. What we'll do tomorrow on Monday, I guess, we'll be starting with using Boolean operators. And
so wait, we're not meeting tomorrow? I thought I had it on for tomorrow.
No, it's not on Saturday though.
Okay, I thought it was.
Tomorrow is Saturday, is it?
I have it. Double check.
Let me check also. I mean, you're scaring me because I have plans tomorrow.
I was like, why are we doing it on a Saturday? I could have.
No. I wouldn't want them to put it on for Saturday, and if they did, it could be a mistake. Going back to the Dropbox.
But they sent me a schedule.
Let me check. I won't be able to take the class tomorrow, though, even if they put it by accident.
Okay, that's fine.
Let me just check. I'll have to fix it, though. I don't want you to, ruin your plans or my plans just because it's been put in incorrectly.
December 4th. Yeah, the email they sent, it says December 2nd, 3rd, and what's today? Yeah, December 4th, 6 p.m. 6th, 7th, 9th, 13th, 14th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 20, 21. January.
Oh, they 3rd. Put December 4th, eh?
Yep. So it's fine. We can just push it out and have the last either.
You know why they would have done this? It's because Christmas holiday is coming, eh?
Yeah. Which apparently is the most important holiday. Overrides anybody else's holidays.
Absolutely. And I'm surprised. See, over here it should be 23rd.
So then what would you just move one more day into January or something?
Yeah, I think what I'm trying to figure out is the end result of all this. Like, where are we going to be when it needs to be finished? So this is January 22nd. It should be January 23rd.
No, 3rd and 4th. No, so January 3rd, that's 2022. So it's the 3rd and 4th.
March. I just ask you as well, what should be convenient for you, do you think? First of all, Saturdays we shouldn't be.
No, I agree. But I was like, all right.
So, no.
Well, and then there's a schedule on the website that makes it look like there's a class every single day. So I was like, before they sent me this schedule, I was like, wait, I'm confused. Why? I'm not going to meet every day in December. There's no way.
I remember, like, in our meeting before your classes started, I think four days ago, was a Monday. I think there was a controversy. People were getting upset about holidays, who wants to go first,
right? 6, 7, 9.
And all that. So whoever was preparing the schedules, they got confused. They picked up different directions from, and we have other instructors also. So who knows what happens? But between us, we can figure out what is convenient. I'll make sure.
Yeah, you got the 18th as well as on there. So And the week of the 13th, it's the
Okay,
13,
so
14, 16, 17. That's like 5 days. Just throwing everything in there.
yeah, so 4th is out of question. Saturday, Sunday, I mean,
Yeah.
we have to prepare, do things.
And then
Then
the
we've
18th
got
as well.
And 18th.
In 2021. So you would just go into January and add a couple more days, I guess. 3rd and 4th, and then whatever.
I think what we ought to do, if I mean, looking at from the course point of view, depends on when you're planning to give your CIRS, for instance. How soon do you think, do you wanted a resolution to get it done before 2022?
Well, there
Because
are
I
already
have
2
seen
classes in
people,
22 anyway. So, I mean, there's already some in January.
yeah.
So adding 2 more classes is not a big deal. No, I'm fine to get it anytime in January or February. I'm not, it's not urgent. It will be helpful, but you know, it doesn't stop my ability to continue in my business, what I'm doing right now. So.
So December 21st. So what's on December 18th? It's Saturday, is it?
Yeah.
Another Saturday. So
Yeah.
if we get these 2 classes pushed further in 2022, we'll end up having 2 more classes.
Right. That's
that
fine.
means 4 classes in January.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 3rd and 4th, and maybe the next
6th
week.
and 6th and 7th, 3,
Or,
4, 6, and 7. Wednesdays, we usually have a meeting.
4 days
so,
in the 1 week. Okay.
No, we can do it even further. I mean, I can do 3, 3rd, 4th, and do. So let's just then get this sorted out. So the following week, which is going to be 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th of January. So 10th and 11th of January. Okay.
That'll work.
All right. So I'll get this fixed and rescheduled. Yeah, just have a great weekend. Just enjoy your Saturdays and Sundays. I mean, that's the only. Yeah, Saturday for me is for my family to push me around. Sunday is for me to just go in my recluse and do nothing really. So in that situation, I'd say that these 2 days are important. I won't want Saturdays. All done. So we're all set. I'll get this fixed for you.
All right. And you're in Toronto?
Yes, in Toronto.
I love Toronto.
So East Coast, obviously. So you're 2 hours behind.
Dallas, 1 hour. Central time.
1 hour behind. So it's 5 o'clock your side. Okay.
Yeah.
So sounds good. I'll see you then on Monday.
Okay.
All right.
Perfect.
So just enjoy your weekend. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Alrighty.
We'll start with the Booleans. All right. Monday.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Have a good one.
Take care.
All right.
You too have a great evening and a good weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.